Brian Housman, and I get the privilege, I was being able to travel full-time all around the United States, speaking to parent groups just like you guys. I get to go to public schools, private schools, homeschool groups, large conventions, mega churches, small churches, military bases. We've gotten to go to 46 United States so far, and 7 different countries. And then this summer we're adding Singapore and Malaysia and possibly Peru. And there's even a parent conference that's popping up in Paris, possibly in 2018. And so God is just, and I'm not saying any of that as being a braggart. There's nothing good in me except Jesus. I'm just a broken, fallible, I'm just glad to be here kind of a dad. And so there is nothing special in any of us besides what Christ has done in us. Yes? And but God has given us, my wife and I and our ministry, a lot of influence and latitude to be able to speak into groups. And I was a youth pastor and a camp director and a teaching pastor for about 12 or 13 years. And then we started doing this full-time 12 years ago. And I'll actually share more of my family story tomorrow morning during the messages when we're talking about leaving a legacy of faith in our families and how the choices that we make add to that legacy that we're going to leave behind. And anyway, I have 2 teenagers, just like you guys do. Mine are older. My son is a freshman in college at a Baptist university in Tennessee. And my daughter is a junior in high school. And she goes to a private Christian school. She homeschooled, my son homeschooled K through 12. My daughter homeschooled K through 8. And then now private school, so we've kind of run the gamut of all 3 experiences. I was public school my whole life, and so we've kind of done a little bit of everything. My wife is a counselor for a homeschool company, and so her full-time job is she just answers emails and the phone of parents just wanting information about, well, what do I do about history, and what do you think about this math curriculum, and she's amazing at it. I mean, just I'm in awe sometimes at her patience with parents, and she has way more mercy than I do. And because my response is like, why are you asking me this? Just go do it, And but I'm letting you know that we have kids because even though our kids are older, and in many regards they have both already said no to a lot of the social media stuff. Like they've cut back on some things in their life because they've already made some stupid mistakes. And so I'm not here today as some kind of a parenting expert, here to tell you this is how everything is supposed to work, and everything worked out perfectly in my family. Because the reality is, if you've given birth to a child, then that means you have a fallen creature in your home, and they're going to do just dumb, impulsive, crazy things sometimes, just like we did, and both of my kids did. And so I'm not here because everything worked out perfect in our family. I know both of my kids love the Lord. They both want to go into ministry, and they both have done some, foolish, impulsive things at times with technology, and have paid a social price, a relational price for it at times. And so some of the stories you're going to hear today are just out of our own family experience, some of the things that they've given me permission to share. Okay. So with that said, let's pray real quick, and then we're going to jump into the presentation. Okay. Father, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for this opportunity to come together as parents here at Greenwood and just kind of pause in the middle of our afternoon to come and learn a little bit more about what's happening in the lives of our children. And God, we just confess to you that we don't have it all figured out, that we don't know everything, that even the things that we know, sometimes we don't know. And so we just want your Holy Spirit to come and be part of this conversation with us. You told us that you left us the gift of your Spirit to live in us, to convict us, to stir us, to motivate us, to woo us to be like your Son. And so right now we ask that your Holy Spirit would help us to hear truth that's presented in terms of a biblical worldview when it comes to technology. And God, we pray that in everything that's happened today, even the things that may just sound salacious or may just sound titillating, God, that we're not sharing it because we just want to be shocking, but it's because we just want to come together as parents and just tell you that we really want to know. And we want to be able to lead out of your truth for our kids' sake. And I pray this for your name and your fame, Jesus. Amen. So, how many of you guys have elementary age kids? Elementary age kids? Raise your hand. Get a ballpark. And how did you end up way over there? Join us over here, please. The Christian life is not meant to be lived alone. And middle school parents, middle schoolers, all right? And high school parents, all right? And come to the elementary parents one more time. Okay, good. Hey, I just want to let you know, I love all age parents coming, but actually my favorite age of parents that come are the elementary age parents. Because you guys are the ones, high school parents, they usually sit there and they're going, oh yeah, I messed that one up, you know? And the middle school parents, sometimes they even have an attitude like, oh yeah, I know that, yeah. But the elementary parents, they're just sitting there wide-eyed going, I don't know any of this, you know? And so I really appreciate you guys, especially elementary parents, being here, because you know this stuff, middle school parents, it comes down the pipe faster than you want it, right? And by the time our kids are the age of 11, they are just knee-deep in screens already. I mean, they start putting their feet in it, their toes in screens by the ages of 2 and 3. And a lot of our schools now are like tech-intensive, screen mandated, you know, where they have screens. We have several schools in the Mid-South where I live in Memphis that they don't have textbooks anymore, that they only have iPads, you know, or laptops in the schools. And so, which brings up another set of problems. Like the typical teenagers now on screen 8 to 10 hours a day. Well, now you got this kid his life is going to be more like 14 hours a day in front of screens, all right? So we are all here as parents because we want to learn a little bit more about how our kids are using these screens in their life. So let's talk a little bit about cell phones. 94% of all high schoolers, which in a statistical sense, anytime you get over 82%, that's a statistical or sociological way of saying everyone or everything. So for instance, if we were to say that 85% of Baptist men drive pickup trucks, which is probably pretty close to true, then we would conclude that by saying the conclusion would be that pretty much all men who are Baptists drive pickup trucks. Does that make sense? So 94% of high schoolers in the United States have pickup trucks. 94% of high schoolers in the United States have their own cell phone. Not one that they're borrowing from you, but you bought them as their own private little gift of a mini computer in their hands. Roughly, it's 72%, but I would say it's closer to 75% now. A couple of these statistics are about 2 years old because it is hard to get accurate, like up-to-month information about how kids, how many of them are using what when it comes to technology, because parents are very leery about letting their kids be interviewed by strangers about, so what do you got on your screen there, kind of a thing. So it's quick, it's easy to get up-to-date information like month to month on adults. It's much harder. There's less study concerning kids. So anyway, I'd say it's roughly 75% of all middle schoolers now own their own cell phone, and roughly half of all preteens now own their own cell phone. So we're talking like 9, to 11-year-olds now have their own cell phone, because 9 to 11-year-olds are very important people who need cell phones. Or at least half of them must think so, or their parents must think so, because we've spent a lot of our hard-earned money on these things for them. More than half of all teenagers say that their social life would be ended or worsened if they didn't have their cell phone. Now for us, we would look at that and say, that's just ridiculous, that's crazy. But think about this, for kids who have cell phones, teens and tweens, their cell phone is like their social lifeline. It's how they find out about who's dating who and what boy band is most popular right now, along with what homework assignments are due tomorrow. My daughter at her school, a lot of her assignments, they actually turn them in, through on Google. And so, they all have a Google account at school. And so their whole social life a lot of times revolves around this cell phone. And so for them to say their social life would be ended or worsened might not be too extreme of an answer. But it just goes to show how ubiquitous these things are in their life. And for them, I don't even know whether they call it a cell phone, because they don't use it as a phone per se, right? I mean, like, we use these things as a phone. It's like the number one thing I do besides read the news and use my map is I make phone calls. But for our kids, they probably only call a couple of people on their phone. And one is called mom and the other is called dad. And everyone else they're going to text, right? Or FaceTime with, or iMessage, or Instagram, or Snap, or that kind of thing. So it's how they connect with everyone in their world. We actually did a study at Fox News a few years ago. God is just, I was talking about like the latitude God's given me, and I got to be on Fox News, and ABC News in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and I've done about 40 interviews with different Fox, ABC, NBC affiliates all around the United States. And so when I was in Memphis, I called our local affiliate and said, hey, let's do this test, and I'll come interview these kids. You guys send a camera crew. And so we recruited 4 students, and we were going to ask them to go without screens in their life for 5 days and just find out what would happen. So we brought them to the studio, and they had their cell phones with them. And I asked them, I said, so when you wake up in the morning, when your alarm clock goes off, before you get out of bed and start your day, what is the very first thing that you do? And every one of them said what?
Look at their phone.
Yep, I pull out my phone, I check my text messages, my Instagram, my Snapchat, my Facebook, because all of 6.5 hours have gone by since they've been asleep, and a lot has happened in their very me-centric world they have to catch up on now before they get out of bed. And then we talked about like what kind of apps they use and what they do throughout the day. And then I said, okay, let's get to bedtime. So at the end of the day, before you've already gotten ready for bed, you've brushed your teeth, you finished your homework, and now your head is on the pillow, you're about to drift off to La La Land, and what is the last thing that you do? And every one of them said what? Check my cell phone one more time. Because, if their phone vibrates, it's like Pavlov's dog. We're all going to answer it, yes? It's not like you can just ignore it. So they're going to check their cell phone one more time. Think about this. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about Deuteronomy 6, and how in Deuteronomy 6 it's called the prayer is called the Shema. It's one of the most important prayers to Hebrew families. And what it is they would say it every morning and every night as a family over their children. They would pray this prayer, starting and ending their day with prayer. Now, how do we in America, how do our kids start and end their day? With social media. It's like, in many regards, it has become our new God. It has become our identity maker. It's like the central overriding force determining our agenda for the day, is we're bookending our day with media. And so we asked these kids, I said, so you guys agreed to go without screens for the next 5 days. And so I had this box, and I said, I want you to take your phones and put them in this box for me. And so one of the kids in the studio, he starts doing like this. And I said, what are you doing? He goes, is this one of those hidden camera things? Because for him, the idea of going 5 days without screens seemed so preposterous, this must be a joke, right? And I was like, no, it's not. And so they started putting their phones in the box, and the very last kid, he does this. He hands me his phone, and he's doing this. And I said, dude, you're like a crack addict. You haven't even given me your phone, and you're already having withdrawals. And it just goes to show just how important these devices have become to our kids. The typical teenager sends over 3,339 text messages every single month. And for us, we're thinking, if you're in the age demographic that I'm in, which is between 40 and 50, closer to the 50 than 40, and we'll just leave it at that. But if you're in that age demographic, we send roughly 300 to 400 text messages a month. That's it. That seems like a lot to me. So really what this means is that if you're in my age demographic and you've got a teenager in your house, you're raising a generation of kids that does something every month 100 times more proficiently than you do. Do you see this? They're doing the same kind of task that you do, except 100 times more every single month. And in part because they text very differently than we text. So for instance, when we text, we actually have conversations when we text, right? So if, what is your name? AJ? So AJ, let's say that I send AJ a text message and I say, hey AJ, I enjoyed meeting you Saturday. What do you think about this next week? You and I go to lunch. That's a whole sentence, isn't it? Yes. And so AJ responds back and says, that's a great idea. How about Thursday, 11:30, Chick-fil-A, ? And I respond back and I say, great, I'll see you there. That's a whole conversation. Wouldn't we agree? Yes? So my daughter, a few months ago, I sent her a text message, and I said at 2:20, she gets out of school 2:30. And I said, hey, how about today? Why don't I pick you up from school instead of mom, and we can go to Panera and just sit around and have a smoothie and talk together. And so she responds back by sending me a smiley face with its tongue hanging out and a Christmas tree and a shooting star. I'm like, I have no idea what this means. And then I pick her up at school, and I said, why didn't you respond to my text message? She goes, I did. And I said, you sent me a smiley face and a Christmas tree and a shooting star. And I said, what did you send me that for? She goes, because I was saying, like, I'm salivating, I'm excited. And I sent you a Christmas tree because, like, you're buying me a smoothie, and that's like a present. And the shooting star because I'm excited about it. And I said, I don't speak hieroglyphics. Like, none of that. You sent me pictures. I asked a question. Like, so for them, they can now, I'm sure this has happened to you before. I know it's happened to your kids because I asked them this question. I said, I'll ask the teenagers, how often does your parents, like, you ask them a question on a text and they'll just say, Mom, can I stay out 15 minutes later? And then you sit there looking at the three bubbles as your mom is typing out a conversation. And your mom responds by saying, okay, but it's a school night, so you have any homework? Have you finished that? So if you haven't finished, go ahead and come on home now. But if you're finished, I'll let you stay out 15 minutes more. But be sure to come home. Don't be home past curfew. And I said, and really all your daughter wants you to respond with is by saying, okay, like that's it. Like, matter of fact, for them, they can have whole conversations with like one letter, can't they? Just K, and that's it. And a thumbs up emoji, like, all right, So they text so differently than we do. You see why technology's become almost this barrier between us sometimes. And for us, we're constantly as parents playing catch up. Even those of us that are more tech intensive in our life. I mean, technology every day is a part of my life. And still my kids, they have to tell them, hey, will you guys help me? Like anytime new apps come about that your friends are using, let me know about it. Not because I think it's bad, but just because I want to have a working knowledge of this stuff. And so my son on the way here, I was driving, calls me and says, Dad, you gotta see this new emoji they released this week, And then my daughter last night was like, have you seen this new meme, Dad? And so they're always helping me know this stuff because we are constantly playing catch up to what our kids already know. Now think about this, like how many of you parents, especially moms, have ever gone to your kid and said, hey, could you fix my phone for me? Or I forgot my Facebook password. Could you log into my Facebook for me? Anyone ever done that? Yes. Think about how absurd this is. Like, we're supposed to be the authority figures, and yet our children are the ones helping us. It's like, who's driving the bus here, 68% of millennials now suffer from a legitimately diagnosed disorder called nomophobia, which is the fear of being without your cell phone. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? And I know some of you are like, that's just ridiculous. What kid couldn't go without their cell phone for a day? But think about this. It's going to happen to one of you tomorrow. On the way to church, you're going to start feeling around your body. You're going to think like, am I dressed? Like, what's going on? And then you're going to realize you left your cell phone at home. Then you're going to start this mental gymnastics with yourself. Like, well, I'm just going to church. It's only a couple hours. I'll be back home soon enough. And then before you know it, you're making a U-turn in the middle of the highway to go home because you can't do without 2 hours with your own cell phone too. I mean, amen? Anyone want to? You can say amen for your spouse who's sitting next to you because we've all done it. These things are just so much a part of our life now. 72% of them, which is roughly 3 out of 4, now sleep with their cell phone, which has led to a whole nother issue. And it's that roughly 44% of teens who are regular texters are losing on average 1 hour of sleep a night. On average, that means a good deal of them are losing more than an hour of sleep a night. The American Pediatric Society 2 years ago revised the numbers on how much sleep a child needs for good mental and physical health. It used to be 8 hours a day. Now they're saying it's 9 hours a day. A teenager who texts in their bedroom gets about 6 3/4. And so we wonder why our kids, so many of them are waking up irritable, distracted, tired at school. Oh, this kid can't focus. He has ADD. They have ADHD. They're hyper. They won't sit still. They're falling asleep in class. Now, I'm not saying there's not these disorders, but I think a good deal of it comes back to what we are allowing to happen in our home. And I know there's a lot of things that happen in our children's lives when they do wrong things outside of God's boundaries. We've been talking this morning in the morning session with your kids about God's design for life. And God's design are called boundaries. And boundaries aren't rules. Boundaries are God's way of he meant for life to be lived. And so he set certain parameters in our life, not because he's trying to remove fun from our life, but because he's trying to protect us from shame and remorse and regret and brokenness. And as long as we live within his boundaries, then we will always be free. And so when our kids get outside of God's boundaries, if you have done your job and I have done my job as being a parent, and my job and your job is very simple, and you're like, simple? Well, I agree, parenting is very complex, but my job and your job is pretty simple, and it's this. My job and your job is to speak truth, to walk in truth, and to model truth to our children. That we speak truth to our children, we walk alongside them through life, modeling truth to them. I mean, we walk in truth with them, and we model truth by our own actions because they're constantly watching what we do with our own choices as well. And so if you've done your job of speaking truth, walking truth, and modeling truth, and your child willfully walks outside of God's boundaries, then that's not on you. You don't need to take that action that they've committed outside of God's boundaries as some kind of a badge of dishonor that you have failed as a parent. Does that make sense? Because if your child, you have modeled for your children what God's design for sexuality is. You've spoken to them about God's design for sexuality. You've walked alongside them helping discover their sexuality. And your child at the age of 17 says, you know what? I've heard it. I've lived it. I understand it. But you know what? I just want to have sex with somebody. That is not on you. But the enemy wants to make you feel like that you're a failure. It's your fault. Does that make sense what I'm saying here? Because it's going to happen to every one of us. At some point in our time, our kids are going to walk outside of God's boundaries. And I say that to you for this. But there are certain times that we do have to own it. And what I mean by that is this. If your child is only getting 6.5 to 7 hours of sleep a night because they have a device in their bedroom with them late at night texting, man, you got to own that one, Mom and Dad. Because you own the house. Yes? I mean, you own the bed that they're living in. And I don't mean that to be like some authoritarian, because my kids would tell you I am not an authoritarian at all. I'm very much a very relational type parent, walk alongside you as a kid, with my kids. But one of the things that we've done with our children since the time that they were young and first started using screens, like when they were, 7 and 8 and 9 and started getting like Nintendo Game Boy, used Game Boys from the used video shop. Those kind of things that came out 20 years ago. That's what we started off with, the black and white ones. And then they could graduate to, something more progressive. And so when they started off with those things, whenever they were to use them, an hour before bedtime is when all the screens have to go away. And so when they were younger, if bedtime was 9 o'clock, then all screens have to be put away at 8 o'clock. And now my kids, when they got to high school, bedtime was 10 o'clock. Now, they didn't have to be asleep at 10 o'clock, but they had to be in their bed with the light out at 10 o'clock. And so all screens had to be put away at 9 o'clock. And we also did it so we had a time of day boundary. Does that make sense? Meaning there's a time of day cutoff and also a location boundary. Meaning no screens in the bedroom at bedtime, and all the screens have to be put on the kitchen counter. Now what that does, I'm not saying you have to do that. It doesn't address it in Scripture. But it's just logical to me because two things happen to us when we wake up as parents in the middle of the night. You wake up, you're going to go to the bathroom, and you're going to check on your kids. Those things that, by the time you hit 40 and you wake up, you're going to go to the bathroom. And it doesn't matter if your child is 28 years old and still living at home, you're still going to go check on them. I mean, it's something in us as parents that we're going to check on our kids. So what it does is when I have all my kids and they had to leave their devices on the kitchen counter, is that instead of having to go check on them, I could just look on the counter and make sure everything is there that's supposed to be there. And if something is missing, then the next day at breakfast, we can have a conversation. And I can say, hey, where was your phone last night? I came to the kitchen in the middle of the night and your phone wasn't here. Where was your phone? And I can just find out the story. And every time it happens, it doesn't mean that there's punishment. Sometimes it's they forgot and it was in their book bag and they can say, hey, it's still in my book bag in the living room. I just forgot to get it out to the counter last night because I wasn't using it yesterday, last night. So as long as I understand that it wasn't in bed with them. Does that make sense? And the reason why is this. Two reasons. One, there have been studies done concerning the human brain and white light. And what happens is our bodies, God made our bodies on this circadian rhythm. And so meaning like our bodies understand daytime and nighttime. You don't have to be taught that. I mean, we understand that when it's dark, our bodies, our brains tell us it's time to go to sleep. And so what happens is when you're laying in a dark room and your child is in their bedroom at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, and it's in the dark in the room, but they're staring at a bright white light, the white light triggers serotonin in their brain. And through their eyes, it triggers the serotonin, and the signal goes to their brain and tells them, oh, it's wakey time, it's daytime, it's time to get up. So their brain won't tell their body to go to sleep because of the bright light, which is why I allow a lot of your reading apps, like your news apps and your Kindle apps and those kind of things, they have the black on white, the nighttime mode, because they're trying to let you read in bed without having the bright white light. Does that make sense? So it doesn't keep you awake as long. And so once the white light is not there, it takes on average your body about 30 minutes for you to fall asleep. So let's say that your kid does go to bed at 10 o'clock, but they've got their cell phone or their iPod or their PSP or DS or whatever they got, their handheld device, and they're in bed texting with them. Because they can text them more than just their phones, right? They got their Kindle, their iPad, their laptop, whatever it is. And they got this light and they're texting. And every time they get a text, they're going to do what with it? What are they going to do when they get a text?
Answer it.
They're going to answer it because, let's be honest, we would too. When we sleep with when we're asleep in our beds and our phone vibrates on the nightstand at midnight, even if it's a spam message, we're going to pick it up and we're going to look at it. Because it's like we've trained our brains to respond to this shaking device on our nightstand. So your child is going to do the same thing. Your 14-year-old now, it's at midnight and he's still up because he's getting a text message. He responds. And unfortunately, it's in a group message, so 28 people can see it. So it's a much greater chance that someone's going to respond to his message instead of it being one-on-one. Do you see what happens now? Now it's 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock. And this has happened to my son a number of times. The next day, he's like falling asleep in homeschool. We're like, why are you not able to stay asleep? I don't know, Dad. And then as we talk about it, he snuck his phone in the middle of the night and he was texting with friends. And that's why he's not able to focus on his chores in school the next day. And so by keeping it out of the bedroom, it allows I'm able to say to my kids when I would say to them when they were young, hey, it's 8 o'clock, it's time to put your devices away. Then what that does is mentally and psychologically, it helps their brain for the next hour to get ready for nighttime, to get ready to go to sleep. Do you see this? And now your child is not having to fight with themselves with that mental struggle of putting the device away because you've already handled that for them an hour before bedtime. And now for the next hour, they get to focus their brain, body focusing on getting ready to go to sleep. So now they can read a book, they can watch a program with you, you guys can talk, they can do art, whatever it is, still play with Legos, whatever, just for the last hour before finally going to sleep, all right? And I bet you if you were to do that with your child, you would see them go to sleep a little bit sooner. Or at least bedtime would be a little more productive where you could actually have conversations together instead of them just ignoring you because they're on this stuff. The number 2 reason why we had our kids keep these devices out of their bedroom is because I really believe that God has created us for community. And part of community means that we live out in the open with each other. Meaning that I've told my son the things that we do in private, when no one is watching, that's where integrity is really tested. Not by what you do in public, because we can all put on a happy face in public. We can all act like a good Christian in public. It's what we're doing in private when no one is around is when our faith, our character is really tested. And so I just determined for myself, for my kid, my son, that I didn't want him every night having a mental, spiritual struggle with his own body, whether or not he's going to say yes to some stupid spam text message or email saying, just click here, come and check me out. The same kind of spam messages that we as men get to our email accounts every day as well. And it's not just email, but if your son is watching YouTube videos The first place my son saw porn was on YouTube. You know what he's watching? Cartoons. He's watching cartoons on YouTube. And one of the links off to the side said lesbian anime. And he's like, I don't know what that is. So he clicks on it, and guess what it was? It wasn't even lesbian anime. It was real life lesbian porn. And he was 11. And see, we had all kind of blockers on our computer, but it can't determine the content of a video. And so if I had allowed him to have these, when you allow your kids to have these devices in their bedroom by themselves, you are setting your kid up for a moral defeat, because they do not have the life experience or spiritual maturity to consistently choose that which is in their best interest. I mean, even those of us as grown-ups, that's why we need accountability in our lives, because we can't consistently choose which is God's best for us when we're left to our own devices. All right, so I know that's a little bit of a rant. Let's move on. Any questions about that so far? Any questions? Okay. 62%, I'd say it's closer probably to 70% now of all teenagers own their own smartphone, which is basically their own mini computer. And it's really hard to get anything other than a smartphone now, because if you go down to your local AT&T or T-Mobile store or wherever you buy your cell phone from, there's going to be 16 bright and shiny new smartphones that your child is salivating over, and one red-headed stepchild flip phone at the end of the aisle that your kid is going, don't even think about buying that for me, Mom. I am not about to use that thing. Like, that came out right when they finally took cords off of phones, you know, back when you were still in college. And so what do we end up doing? We end up buying these smartphones for our kids. We wrap them up, we put them under the tree, and they pull them out, and now our kids, your child has access to anyone, anywhere, any time of the day. That you do understand, don't you, that these devices, I'm not saying that they're evil. Technology is not evil. It's not even a bad thing. Technology is inanimate. It can't be good or evil. It's what we do with it that can make it unhealthy and at times even ungodly. And so the danger in buying these phones and then just wrapping them up and giving them to your kids is that they are not set up to protect your child's spiritual health, their future reputation, their emotional well-being. You know, I mean, it is set up. This is a device that's perfectly capable of someone cyberbullying your child, someone stealing your child's identity, someone sexually harassing your child, someone at the wee hours of the night setting up a private meeting face-to-face with your child, because they're not set up for your child's safety in mind. And so what I really encourage you to do, I know about almost, it looked like 80% of you have elementary age kids. So in the next couple of years or so, you're going to decide to start buying a phone for your kid. And unfortunately, you might not have much of a choice other than to buy a smartphone. We actually bought my children's first phone, were flip phones, and they didn't get them to 14. They were the last ones in their youth group, small group, to get phones. And that's okay with me. My job is not to keep up with everybody, every other parent. My job is to look out for my kid and do what I feel like was in their best interest. And so, because I know that whenever the day comes that you buy your child a phone, you're not getting that cat back in the bag. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I know that there may come a time that you go, I need to remove this for some kind of punishment or to relearn a boundary, but it's now their phone. Just like, it's kind of like when your child, anyone of your kids at the driving age, they got to be 16, yeah, like once they got the keys to the car, there's no getting them back, right? I mean, like, even if it's your car, they now call it whose car? Oh, they call it their car. Like, they're not even paying for it, but yet they call it their car because in their mind, it's theirs, you know? And so the same thing happens with the phone. So what I really encourage you to do is, those of you who are going to think about buying a phone for your kid in the next couple of years, do this. When you go to your local store to buy the phone, go ahead and talk to the associate and ask them what kind of safety software do they have available, or settings are available on the phone, already set up on the phone to protect your child, to set time of day restrictions, or help preserve their identity, or keep them from looking at inappropriate sites, because of a lot of the phones already have some of those mechanisms on it, all right? Now, in terms of the software that's going to be very robust to keep them off certain sites, you're going to have to download or purchase those things yourself. So what I encourage you to do is take the phone out of the box. All right, and go ahead and for my kids, once they finally got iDevices, what we did is before we ever gave them to them, before we ever gave them their smartphone, is I disabled the internet, then I disabled the app store, and then I password protected it, meaning that if they wanted to download an app, they had to come and ask me permission. Dad, can I download this latest fashion app? You know, it was like, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. And then I would put in the code. They'd go to App Store, we'd download it, and then I put the code back on. Is it inconvenient? Absolutely. Well, you know what? Sometimes being a parent is just inconvenient, isn't it? I mean, you got to chase a 2-year-old around the house. I just assume not have to do that, but it's part of being a parent sometimes. None of us enjoy changing diapers, did we? It's inconvenient, but that's part of being a parent, and it never stops. So yes, it's not the best of all possible worlds for me to have to constantly, my kids get permission to download certain things, but my job, your job is to protect them. And so that's what we would do. And then we use certain, you can download software. There's a whole chapter in the Tech Savvy Parenting book that we have available right outside that wall there. After this is done, there's a whole chapter in there on different software that we recommend and alternate browsers that we recommend that you can set up on your kids' phones and handheld devices like gaming devices in order to protect them from getting on inappropriate sites. There's also some new things that you can actually hook up to your home router that's very easy to use. We actually sell it on our website. If you go to 360family.org /store, and it's called Circle, and it's a box that fits in your hand about like this. And all you do is that you hook it up to your router. Every one of you have the internet in your home, you have a router. And all you do is you hook up the cable to your router, and then you download the app, and you can actually set up a profile for every person in your family. I mean, it doesn't matter how old they are. So let's say that you've got a 9-year-old that you don't want to be on any social media at all. Well, you can restrict all social media, but allow the internet. You can also say, I want the internet turned off by 8 o'clock at night for this 9-year-old. But hey, I got a 16-year-old and they need to work on homework sometimes. So I'm going to allow the internet till 10 o'clock, but I want to shut off all social media at 9 o'clock, or 8 o'clock, or whatever the time is. You can do all this very much personalize it. So anyway, we set up these kind of softwares on our kids' devices so that it blocks the native browser, meaning the browser that's on the phone. And it's easy to do that. If you need help with it, there's a chapter in the book that walks you through in pictures of how to do it. Because a lot of this is new to us. And so you don't have to have a degree. You don't even have to be tech savvy to do it. We're going to walk you through in pictures how to do this yourself. And the other thing I would encourage you to do is when you buy the phone or these handheld gaming devices, if you go to Best Buy and you're going to buy a PSP for your kid, make the associate tell you how to set up the parental controls. Just tell them, I would love to give you my money, but I'm not going to do it unless you set up the parental controls for me. And guess what? They'll do it because they want your money, right? And so the same thing when you buy the phones, let the associates help you, set these things up. For all of our family, we all have MacBooks. We're all on Apple products, so we all have iPhones and iPads and MacBooks and everything. And so I actually took all of our stuff at one time to the Apple store, and I said, I want you to set up all these devices on one account for me so I can manage all of it from my phone. And they were like, okay. And they did it all for me because they knew I just spent thousands of dollars on the devices, so they're willing to help me. Does this make sense? All right. So be willing to do that for your kid. Again, I'm not saying that smartphones are bad, but you do got to be very careful because they have access to anyone and anywhere on these things. All right. So let's move forward a little bit. Any questions about the smartphones? Anyone? No one? I promise, whatever question you have, every other parent in the room is thinking it. They're just not asking it. Okay? Anyone? All right. How many of your kids went to, ever played on websites when they were like in single digits? That they would go to websites like Webkins or LegoClub.com or Minecraft or Barbie.com or places like that. Any of you, your kids? Yeah, all of us, our kids did. Now, there's nothing wrong with these sites, so don't feel like, oh my gosh, she's going to tell me I blew it. No, there's nothing wrong with them. They're all very safe sites because there's a lot of federal laws in place in order to prevent kids on these sites. Like, for instance, they're not allowed to ask for any personal information from your children. They can't share their real name or their pictures or their phone numbers because they're made for children. And the federal law it's called the COPA Act, the Child Online Protection and Privacy Act. They're not allowed to ask for personal information from anyone under the age of 13. And so, which is why any kid under 13 is not supposed to be, technically, federally, not supposed to be on social media. All right? But what happened was our kids, really what was going on socially with your kids at that young of an age is they were taking their first steps at learning how to live in community with others online. I'm not saying it was a bad thing, but that's what was happening. Is they would go on Webkins and they would have their little pet chihuahua and someone else have their little pet koala, virtual pets, and they would go on there and have a little pet play date together at the pet playground, or they would go on to Minecraft and you got your kid is making a Minecraft world with some kid in Serbia, that he's never met before, but they've met each other, they only know each other from Minecraft, and my son would play with people from all over the world making Minecraft creations together, but he has no idea who these people are, and because they can't share they can't share how old they are or where they live or their phone numbers or that kind of thing. Or your kids maybe would go onto legoclub.com and share pictures of the Lego creations and that kind of stuff. But then something happens around the age of 11, 12, or 13. And our kids get tired of going to those websites that are made for kids because, hey, I want to do grown-up stuff now. So they go to websites that weren't made for kids because they've heard about these websites from their older siblings or from people at youth group or in their play groups or from watching us, as parents be on these websites. I'm not saying the websites are bad. They're just not made for 10, 11, 12-year-olds because they don't have the life experience to understand how the information they're sharing could potentially be used against them. And so our kids, what happens is because they were allowed to talk with people on Webkins, or they could share pictures of their Lego creations on Lego Club at age of 11, in their mind they're thinking, well, I can create an Instagram account or a Facebook account, and now I can share other pictures with people. Because they assume that everyone out there must be just like them. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. That doesn't make your kid stupid or foolish or naive. It just makes your kid normal. That God has created your child with a heart of innocence. And they're not jaded even a lot of times by the age of 15 and 16. They're just not jaded or cynical yet. They still have some idea in them that the way of life is supposed to work, that we all should be able to trust each other. But it's just not that way in the online world because everyone is not who they say that they are. And so our kids end up going online and having conversations with people that they think that they know who they are, but the only place they know this person is online. They end up sharing information with people that they think that this person is okay, or they talk about themselves in ways that maybe we would have in a diary. Like they would go online. I was speaking at a church like this one time, and they had a youth group page on Facebook where they could just talk about upcoming youth group events. And so before I went to the church, I'm just looking on their Facebook page, and I'm randomly clicking on profiles of kids in their youth group, seeing which ones have their profiles set to private so that I can't see what they're posting, and which ones are public, meaning that anyone can see what they're talking about. About 62% of all teenagers now say that they have all their social media accounts on private, which is awesome. You should strongly, I would say that you shouldn't even allow your child to be on social media unless they have their profile set on private, to at least have some modicum way of protecting their identity and the information that they're sharing with their friends. All right? So I'm randomly clicking on profiles, and then I called the youth pastor and I said, hey, I want you to look at this profile of one of the girls in your youth group. She was an 8th grader. Now let's just say that she goes to Greenwood Middle School, all right, even though it was a different city. And so we're looking at this kid's profile, and she goes to Greenwood Middle School, and I said, look at this. Looking at her profile, because her profile is set on public, I've got dozens and dozens of pictures of her as a 6th, 7th, and 8th grader growing up the last couple of years once she started her account. I've got her full class schedule in middle school. I know all the classes she's taking and when she's taking them. I've got her home address. I've got pictures of her with her dog in her front yard. I know what kind of dog she has. I know her favorite boy bands that she likes. I know who she has a crush on. I know where she goes to church. I know she takes French horn lessons at 4:30 in the afternoon at the community center. I said, I know everything that I need to know, that if I was of evil intent, I could easily create a relationship with this kid. Now here's the question. Has she shared anything inappropriate? No. What is she talking about? She's just talking about her life. But yet, do you see how a lot of this information is careless? There's no reason for anyone other than her friends to know her cell phone number. Or why does someone need to know her home address and her class schedule and her birthday and all these family pictures, these pictures of her in her bedroom, on her bed? You know, just leading other people to wonder, like, wow, what's going on there? And, you know, just those kind of things. And so, and the reason why is our kids don't have the life experience to understand. And I said, you know, how hard would it be for me to say, oh, you go to Greenwood Middle School? You know, I was at that school 2 years ago. I'm up to the high school now. How's math class going for you? Oh, you have a Chihuahua? You know, I've got a Husky, and I go walk him in the park every Friday afternoon after school. Maybe I'll see you there sometime. Oh, you take French horn at 4:30 at the community center. You know, I take trombone at 4 o'clock. Maybe I'll hang around next week in the back hall and look for you. Now, there's no reason for her to suspect anything. Now, I'm not telling you this, I promise. I'm not telling you this to freak you out as a parent or just to make it sound titillating or shocking. I'm telling you this because over 40% of all teenagers admit to having intimate sexual conversations on social media. These are the ones that admit it. Over 40% of them are having intimate sexual conversations with people on social media. 25% of them are having these sexual conversations with complete strangers. These are the ones, again, that admit doing this, meaning the number is probably higher than that. 1 out of 4 of all teenagers are saying that they're doing this. 8% of them set up a face-to-face meeting with the stranger. 8% of them. This is almost 1 out of 10. And why would, for us as a parent, we would go, there's no way my kid would do that. Why would any kid be that stupid? Because in their world, the person they're talking to is just like them. Do you see this? And please I don't want you to think that this is just like some scenario. This is happening day after day after day. I could tell you of true stories that have happened in my own community of kids that have been picked up by a stranger they were interacting with on social media, taken across state lines, and the kid never came back home again. Because they thought the person they were talking to was just like them. All right? Well, let's continue. So our kids, they end up getting on social media at 10, 11, 12 years old. They're on these websites. And they're not even going to websites anymore because instead they're going to access everything that they need to have from their smartphone, right? Everything they need to have is right there on their smartphone. They're going to go to all these apps, places like Snapchat is the most popular social media app now being used by middle school and high school girls in the United States. It's the second, sometimes third most popular among all teenagers in the United States. Over 90% of all teens say that they use social media, again, which is like a way of saying all teenagers are on social media. A good number of them, if you're in middle school, a lot of them will start off on a messaging app like Kik or Snapchat, which is now owned by Snap Inc. They're getting ready to release their IPO, their initial public offering, so they're going to be a publicly traded company now, and valued at about $20 billion. So if this company is valued at $20 billion, why do you think that they're out there collecting all the information that your kid posts online? Yeah, it's to make money. And when I speak to teenagers, and I go to public schools, private schools, youth groups, and one of the 2 big things I tell teenagers is this: there is no such thing as private on social media. Everything that you post is being looked at, is being gathered by that social media site. And so if you are on Snapchat, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Uvu, if you're on Facebook, whatever you're on, that company is looking at every picture, every thumbs up, every shooting star, every smiley face that you post, so they can feed commercials and advertisements to you in order to make billions of dollars. And so nothing, even if your child's profile is on private, it's really not private because they still can see everything you post. My son, he was hanging out with his buddies last year right after graduation, and they went to Taco Bell. And he came home after hanging out with his buddies, and the next day he came to me, he was like, Dad, this is so weird. I was like, he goes, have you been on Facebook today? I was like, no, why? And he said, it's like Taco Bell took over Facebook. And I was like, why? And he goes, every commercial, every ad on my Facebook is about Taco Bell. I was like, that's not funny at all. It's because right here, last night, you went on Facebook and said, I love me some chalupas, and they own chalupas, and so they searched for the word chalupas, so guess what they did? Anyone that said chalupas, they have the right to send them ads, and so now they took over your Facebook, it looks like, So they're always looking at everything that your kid is posting. There's a whole new series of apps that are out now called anonymous apps. And these have become very popular with teenagers. A couple of them are in the top 10 of apps that our kids are using now. And the way that they work is everything that is posted is anonymous. No one has a username. No one has an ID. A lot of the times it's just an emoticon. Like for instance, if you sign up, you might be assigned that you're going to be the pine cone. And if you sign up, you might be the licorice stick. I mean, everyone, it just assigns you a picture. And no one knows who the person's picture is. Does that make sense? Now, on some of these apps, like there's Whisper on the left. The bottom one is called Secret. The one on the far right is called Shush. And it's like SSHHH. And the way that they work, please, you don't have to test this. I've already tested them. My wife and I have looked at them. And so all three of them, when you sign up for them, you have to give it access to your phone list. Now that should be an immediate red flag. Like, why does this app need to see everybody else in my phone list? Because of about the 300 people in my phone list on my phone, besides my 2 teenagers, everybody else is a parent or a pastor. And so, but what it is, it doesn't want to know their names, it's looking for their phone number because you register through your phone number on these apps. And then it's going to look at your contact list and it's going to come back and say, oh, we found 2 other people in your phone list that are also on Whisper. And they are the licorice stick and the pine cone. Now the FBI actually did a study a couple years ago about these anonymous apps and concluded that over half of all the content on these things is of a sexual nature. Because again, we were meant to live life out in the open in a healthy community. But when we remove boundaries and say that we can do things anonymously, you see what's going to happen? We're going to go to the lowest common denominator of morality. Because now there's no way of anyone knowing who I am and what I'm posting. I can do or say whatever I want to. So I have screenshots. I can show you if you want to see them on my phone of things that my wife and I have seen on Whisper and Secret. And the other thing that does is now whenever you open it, you can dial it in by GPS how far out you want to see people within your radius that are also on the app. So you can do it within like a 5-mile radius down to 50 yards. Okay? So what it is let's say that all of us in the room, if we were all on Whisper, and I had my radius set to 50 yards, what that would mean is probably anything I'm seeing on my screen that people are posting is probably coming from people within this room. Does that make sense? Because it's only looking for people within a 50-yard radius GPS of my phone signal. All right? So what we know is happening now, this is not an urban myth, teenagers are having Whisper parties. Or what they can do is they can go on the app and everyone's anonymous. And so before I show up, we're going to have a Whisper party and I'm going to post this stock photo that says what I'm willing to do and what I'm looking for. Does that make sense what I'm saying? When we all show up at the party. What I'm willing to do with someone and what I would like for someone to perform for me. And so then when we show up at the party, we can all set our radius to 50 yards, meaning everyone in the house, none of us know who the persons were that posted it. But when we show up, we could say, hey, the left bedroom is open, and I'm looking for this. Anyone's available, I'll meet you there in 10 minutes. It's like this next generation's version of going in the closet for 20 minutes. Do you see what I'm saying? Or we could go in the closet in the dark and you don't know who the person is and you can make out, for 20 seconds and come back out and like no one knows who it was. Well, now, there doesn't have to be, you see what we've done now with our sexuality? Like, there's no such thing as dating or courting or anything. There's no awkward tension anymore because we've already agreed ahead of time before we ever showed up that this is what we wanted to do. So now I can show up and when we leave, I can even have plausible deniability because the only person that knows I was there was the other person in the room. Does this make sense? I mean, this is like their whole new way of dating for kids, a lot of them today. The other one called After School. Let me see if I've still got it on my phone. A lot of these, I delete them when I'm done. Yeah, there it is. And so I'm going to go out here, so if you want to move the camera this way. So here is After School. It is the latest anonymous app made for teenagers. It's the first app that's made specifically and only for teenagers, meaning you and I can't get on it. Because what the app does is, okay, now let's see. Okay, there it is, Greenwood, Arkansas. It pulls it up by GPS, and it's going to look for all the local schools in my area, all right? And then if I were to click on it and say Greenwood, that I go to Greenwood High School, and look, it tells me how many students are online right now using the app. It says 643. So we know 643 teenagers from your high school are using this app right now, all right? And so the way it works is, let's say I click on it, and I'm going to click on it, and now it's going to tell me to put in my class year. So let's say I put in my class year is 2018. Now what it's going to do is it's going to go and check my Facebook. And on my Facebook, is it's going to see, do I say on Facebook I'm class of 2018? Or does my age range, my birth date, correspond to someone who would be graduating in 2017, 18, or 19? Because if not, it's going to reject me and not let me on the app. Because they only want teenagers on the app. And then once you get on there, everyone is assigned an anonymous name. So no one knows who the other people are on the app. And again, you got, what did we say? 43 of your kids are on the app right now. And then the way the app works is you can go on the app, and guys, and I'm not saying this to be crass parents, but guys can say things like this. Hey, here's a 9th grade girl, a 10th grade girl, 11th grade, and a senior. And here's their names. Which one would you like to be with? Who would you like to do? Hey, what do you think about this teacher? Oh, this is what the football coach did to me once. Right. Any questions about those anonymous apps? I know you have to have questions. Anyone? Yes, ma'am?
On those anonymous apps, so if they had that after school app, and there are maybe probably more than 643 kids in the high school who have it, are they, like, I mean, you term friends on Facebook, are they friends with all of those people, or, because they're anonymous, so they wouldn't choose you.
Yeah, you're not, on after school, you're not friends with anyone.
Or
you can just see what everyone is posting.
You would just see the latest thing posted and go on
Yes,
forever.
exactly.
Okay.
Like whereas on like Instagram and Facebook and things like that, you can have a closed profile where you can only see, or people can only see if you're friends, that kind of thing. But on after school and the others as well, all those secret apps, you can scroll for days and just look back, for days and days and days and see what people have been talking about and posting. And so it's not like an ongoing dialogue between you and one person. So, good question. Anyone else?
I've also heard that there are some apps that look like your everyday app. Maybe like a calculator or the camera, but you can store and hide photos.
Yes, so good question or good statement. So here's my calculator, right? App that's on my phone, and it works just like a calculator. Guess why? Because it's a calculator app, right? But you'll see on my phone right down here, there's another calculator app. And look, it looks just like, they look identical almost, don't they? It's another calculator app. So this is called Calculator Plus. And so guess what? Like, it looks almost identical to the other one, doesn't it? Matter of fact, I can do the same computations that I did on it because it works just like a calculator. But the other thing that I can do is I can type in, and I only did this so I can display it to you guys, because you'll see there's nothing in there. But I can type in my secret 4-digit passcode and hit the percentage sign, and it's going to open up a private vault and a private browser, internet browser. so that even if I have internet safety software set up on my child's phone, this is going to bypass that. And it doesn't keep the internet history. And there's only a way for me to see it is if I know that 4-digit passcode, and I happen to know that this is more than just a calculator. Does that make sense? It's also a photo vault and a video vault. So any photos that they found that were inappropriate on their private browser, they can download and save them in that private vault. And the only way to see it is if you happen to know what that 4-digit passcode is. And there's also game apps that work the same way, where like if you make it past level 4, or if you hit this clown nose, or that kind of, I'm just using it as an example, but there's other kind of apps out there the same way that look like gaming apps. And if you reach a certain point level, then it'll open up your private browser or private vault.
As a parent, is there a way to, looking at it, know that that's what it is? I heard that you can click on it, and the X pops up, you can delete it. That would mean it's an aftermarket top app.
Oh yeah, she's just saying, yeah, can you, if an X pops up on it, you know, can you delete it? Absolutely. Like
because you can't do that for the standard calculator, right?
No, I can't. I can delete the calculator that came on the iPhone is not made by Apple, so they make it, and the same thing is on your Android phones. So because they're not made by the company, they just license it from the company that made the original calculator app, that you can delete it as well. So what can happen is, let's say that your kid, and I'm not telling you this because I think your kid's up to no good. I'm just sharing the possibilities. Let's say they delete the real calculator app, and so that when you open it, they're like, you don't have to question, why do you have more than one calculator app? And they're like, I only have one. It's just the calculator app. Because they deleted the real one, and now they've got this one. So, any other questions? Are you feeling overwhelmed
So how
yet?
do you stay on top of that? 'Cause
Yeah.
I mean, I would have no idea.
Yeah, you're right. And in some regards, it's easy as a parent to feel overwhelmed and to start feeling demoralized. You know, like I just feel defeated. Like there's no way. And honestly, I do not think it's my job. And here's a guy who every day I'm all up in technology. It is not my job to know. There's no way for me to know everything my child is doing on the technology. I can't. The typical the teenager now spends 8 to 10 hours a day in front of screens. I was sharing with your teenagers last night, we were talking about their time and how they use time in their life. And we're going to be held accountable before the Lord with what we do with the time that He gave us. The teenagers on social media now spend on average 2 hours a day on social media. Now what that means is if your child lives to be 72 years old, they would have spent 6 entire years of their life just on social media. If they're on there 2 hours a day, if you tell me as a parent, oh, I know everything my kid's doing on social media, I really am going to laugh at you. And I don't mean that to be flippant. I mean it because there's no way to know everything our kids are doing because they're on it so much. So, I don't, and the other thing is this, I don't feel like I have to know everything because the reality is most of it is just silly, innocuous stuff of them watching cat videos or fail videos or just talking with their friends. Just like we talk with our friends in the car when we were teenagers. And every conversation we had wasn't inappropriate. Most of them were not. They were just conversations about what we thought about a boy or a girl or our parents or that kind of thing. So instead, I feel like our job as parents is to create reasonable accountability. And the way we do that is this, is that you can come to your child periodically and check and tell them that you're going to check their social media. So I'll come to my daughter and I'll say, I need to check your Instagram. Could you log into your account? And she'll go, okay. So she'll log into her Instagram account and and then I take 2 minutes and that's it. Just 2 minutes. Because there's no way I want to sit and look at every stupid, silly comment her friends are making about her pictures because 99.9% of it, of what my daughter's going to post or look at, is going to be appropriate, right? So I'm just taking 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, I'm scrolling and praying. Holy Spirit, if there's anything I need to see, you let me see it in the next 2 minutes. And I'm telling you, to your kid, those 2 minutes feel like an eternity. You know, they're just standing there looking at you, sweating. What is she going to see? What is he looking for? You know, and I'm like, I'm not looking for anything. I just want to be a part of this life with you. And so the other thing that happens is I usually ask 2 questions in the 2 minutes. And so it's usually questions like this. Hey, how do you know this girl? Or where did you meet this guy? And I just want to hear the story. And so the story is, oh, she's on my cheerleading squad at school. Okay, that makes sense. But if the story is, oh, you remember last summer at church camp when we went to Kentucky and there was this group from Ohio there we met. And so there was this guy there that I connected with him on Instagram, and he's a skater, and he knows this other skater from New York, and this is his friend. Oh, so you mean like you don't really know him in the real world? Well, no, not really. Okay, well, let's delete him, okay? And a true story. And she goes, okay. And so I was like, well, you told me that you don't know him. So if you don't know him, you're really not going to miss him, are you? Well, I guess not. Okay, well, let's delete him, okay? She goes, okay. And guess what? She doesn't miss him. Because she was only friends with him because he was friends with someone that she's friends with, and they feel like they have to be friends with everyone that sends them a friend request. And so once we deleted him, I don't have to worry about this guy anymore because I've told my kids, you only need to connect with people that you know in the real world, right? Because then it's a greater possibility I may get to meet them one day or see them around church or school or that kind of thing. So I just take 2 minutes. I'm asking 2 questions in those 2 minutes. Does that make sense? Right? Because my kids never know what I'm going to ask for the phone. And if your kid is going to be on social media, you must be connected on that social media yourself, whether you use it or not. If the only person you follow, if you're going to let your kid be on Snapchat, and I'm not saying that you should, but if you're going to, then you should be on Snapchat and follow one person, and that be your kid. So that if you're going to be on Instagram, follow that one person on Instagram, and that should be your kid. So that you can at least see what it is that they are posting and they're talking about. Unfortunately, on Snapchat, there's no way to do that because there's no history. Everything is erased unless they save it, which again, that's a huge red flag that you need to be able to discern whether or not your child is mature enough to handle that kind of responsibility. All right? Social media and their phones, it's really like this web that has just kept their whole life. We have to skip a little bit of this just for time's sake. It's become like this web that has connected their whole life. And now the average kid is on social media. They have over 500 connections. 500. Not just on Instagram, but let's say that your kid is on Facebook and Instagram and Musical.ly and WhatsApp, and they're on 5 or 6 different of these social media sites. And so all of them put together, they're going to be connected to over 500 people. Now, if you ask the typical teenager, how many friends do you have in your life? They're going to name maybe 8 or 10 people. And if you say, how many best friends do you have or close friends do you have? They may name 1 or 2. But yet they're connected to over 500 people on social media. There's no way for them to know who all these people are because there's this pressure to always be up on where are you on the social ladder of how many people are you connected to. And so let's say that your 13-year-old gets on Instagram. Well, what she wants is she wants to be connected to as many people as possible because her friends that have already been on there for 6 months longer than her, they've got 483 friends on Instagram. And they're thinking, I got to catch up. So any friend request they get, guess what they're going to do? Accept, accept, accept. Because they want to up their total of people they're connected to. Also, let's say that these people that your kid's connected to, if they don't really know them, then let's say that person, that the request starts coming back from your daughter, they're asking things for them that could potentially be inappropriate, and we'll see that in just a second. They're on 6 different sites, and 80% of them have what we call posting regrets. You know, like in terms of they say something, they post something that they wish that they could take back. And unfortunately, and this is the number 2 big thing I tell the teenagers, is there is no redo with social media. There are no takebacks. There is no delete. Because once you post it, once you send it, once you like it, it's out there forever. Because anything that you post can be screenshotted, can be saved, and shared with somebody else later. Which is why the things that they're posting become so dangerous for their future. Because About 80% of them admit to having sexually inappropriate conversations with other people on social media, that they're sending and receiving sexually inappropriate text messages with people. And it's not just text messages, unfortunately it's photos as well. 20% of them are sending and receiving nude and semi-nude photos of themselves or someone else on social media. Not 2%. 1 out of 5 of all teenagers are doing this. And unfortunately, we're not seeing much of a difference in the statistics between Christian and non-Christian, or religious and non-religious teenagers. That their moral upbringing is not making a difference. You know, when girls were asked, the number one reason why girls, when they asked, this was actually, this came from the Center to Prevent Teen Pregnancy. They interviewed over 5,000 teenagers and young college students about how they use social media. And that's where we got this statistic. And when they asked girls this question, why did you send this to some boy? Why would you send a photo of yourself to some boy that you can never get back again? And this is what I tell girls at youth groups all the time, is once you send that picture to this boy, it is a gift that you can never get back again. And it is a gift that you might as well have the expectation that he has the freedom to share it with anyone else, because he does. It may be illegal for him to share that picture, but you better believe that's exactly what he's going to do with that photo. And 1 out of 5 of all girls are saying that this is what they're doing. 69% of girls, the number one answer of why they do it was to be fun or flirty. I mean, think about this, moms. When you were in middle school, how would you have flirted with some boy? Maybe you put a note in his locker, I like you, do you like me? Check yes, check no. I mean, that's being flirty, isn't it? Maybe you wink at him as you're walking through the hallway and see if he winks back. Maybe you drop a book in the cafeteria line and see if he picks it up for you. I mean, those are all flirty things, aren't they? But do you see what this generation, we've redefined what flirting is. Now it has no longer to do with winking an eye or an innocent note. Now it's sending a sexually inappropriate photo. And I wouldn't say it's the first photo that's inappropriate, because what happens is the first photo may be simply your daughter laying on her bed in room by herself. And she takes 43 selfies until she finally finds the one that makes her feel good about herself. And then she gets this text message from some boy that she knows on Instagram, and he says, hey, you know, I like you and you like me. Why don't you send me a picture just for me? Anytime someone, boy, says to your daughter, send me a picture just for me, that's a code word. Do you know what I'm saying? He's asking for something that he has no business asking for. My daughter has a boyfriend, her first boyfriend, and I said those exact words to him. You never have the right to ask my daughter for something. You have no right to ask her for something that you're not willing to back up with a commitment. Meaning, the only person that should ever see intimate photos or videos of my daughter is her husband one day. And so if you are asking for those things, you better be ready to have a lifetime commitment with her. And I also said this to him. I said, you have no right to ever say words to her in a text message that stirs her heart in a way that's not appropriate. Because I said, girls are driven by words and language. You as a guy are driven by your eyes. You're visually stimulated. And I said, so when you say words to a girl like, oh, you're hot, you're sexy, you got it going on, you're all that, I said, man, it does something to her heart. And so when your daughter finally sends that picture to some boy and the response comes back, oh, wow, you are so hot. Really what he's doing in that moment, he is feeding her soul. He's feeding this God-given need to be desired. God made your daughter to be desired, to be loved, to be cared for. And now he's feeding that need. So let's just be logical. What's going to happen to the next photo? Because now she feels good about herself. So maybe she unbuttons one button. Maybe the next week, as they keep texting, she unbuttons one more button. Again, it's not the first photo that's the bad one. It's the 128th photo into the relationship as they've gotten more and more comfortable with each other that becomes inappropriate. Right? Well, let's wrap up. And I know that we've exceeded our time, and I apologize. Let's just touch on this for just a few minutes. I feel like what's happened with this generation is technology has changed their understanding of community and the way that they relate to one another, but it's also shifted the sexual conversation. That now we have kids that are having conversations about things at a younger and younger age that we never would have talked about in mixed company when we were teenagers. For instance, I went to a public school, K through 12. I don't ever remember hearing the word threesome back in the 80s. Do you guys remember hearing that term, threesome? I don't remember it. It was not part of our vernacular, our slang language, to talk about group sex, even as public school students. We didn't talk about things like lesbians. We didn't talk about even sexual orientations back then. We might have had some slang terms for homosexuality that were a lot of times meant in a joking manner, but we didn't talk about sexual orientations. My daughter came to me one day. She had her Instagram pulled up, and it was a picture of a boy and a girl hugging, and over the photo was a list of orientations. And it was heterosexual, homosexual, bisexual, trisexual, omnisexual, pansexual, asexual. I said, sweetie, she goes, what does this one mean? And I said, sweetie, we are making up terms to accommodate our sexual proclivities. Like basically, as long as I have a term to call myself, I can go do whatever I want. This is what I'm talking with your teenagers about tonight, is the issue of truth. And now, as long as we want to call it something, then I can call it truth. I can be whatever I want to be, and I'm being truthful. So it must be truth for me. And so this is the world our kids are living in now. So they're having these conversations that we never would have had, because these conversations, these terms didn't even exist for us back then. And so now our kids, the typical child's exposure to digital pornography is between 9 and 11. 9 and 11 is when most kids are being exposed to digital porn. By the age of 18, 90% of kids would have viewed digital porn. It's not an issue of will your kid view porn? The issue really is when will they view porn? I mean, look at this one. 83% of all boys have viewed group sex on the internet. 83%. That's like saying all boys. Like they are learning about sexuality, not from Scripture. They're not even learning about it, for goodness sake, in the locker room. They're learning about it in their bedrooms at night on an app as they're watching this stuff. And I asked my daughter about it one day, and she said, Dad, honestly, she said, she made some joke to a friend on Instagram, and I saw it, and I said, sweetie, I think you need to delete this comment because it could really be misunderstood. And she was like, what do you mean? And I explained the connotation, how it could be misunderstood. She goes, Dad, I never even thought of it like that. And I said, I know, that's why I'm trying to help you understand. And she goes, Dad, honestly, she said, I think part of it is by the time I was 10 years old, we've already seen so much of this stuff that our minds have just become numbed to it. I thought, here's a kid who is incredibly spiritually mature, who what she wants to do with the rest of her life is be a full-time missionary. And yet she's able to be honest enough to say, Dad, I have seen so much of this stuff, I've just become numbed to it. So this is how she is. What do we say about the typical just church-going kid out there and what it's doing to their heart and their mind? If you were to take if you don't know whether or not your child is looking at digital porn, just answer this. Do you live in an urban community? Are you politically conservative? Do you have a college degree? Are you theologically conservative? Is community volunteerism important to you? Are you a Republican? Because for everything that you say yes to, it increases the likelihood that your kid's looking at porn. You're thinking, that's crazy. Why would any of those things mean our kids looking at porn? Because what happens is the more conservative we become, the more lulled to sleep we get as parents at thinking our kids are okay. Wow, man, I got a job raise this year. I'm making $5,000 more. We can put our kids in private school. They'll be okay then. Man, we're doing better and better financially. We can move into a gated community. Our kids will be safe then. And the better and better off we think our kids are, the more lulled to sleep we get at thinking everything is okay. And the whole time our kids are just out there waving at us saying, please provide boundaries in my life because I don't know the decisions to make. You know, my children, they both have made some decisions in their own life that have had some social consequences. They both have made some decisions that have cost them some reputation points with people of trust. They both have made decisions that have cost them some trust with us at times. And yet I would consider them great kids. And the reason why they made some foolish choices at times is because there is an enemy out there. In John chapter 10, verses 9 and 10, Jesus tells us that the enemy is out there to steal, kill, and destroy. That's his end game for our kids. And so we have constantly had to be vigilant as a parent about what our kids are looking at, what they're watching, who they're connected to, what devices that they're using. Not because we think our kids are bad, or our kids are looking at porn, or our kids are connected to the wrong people, but because there's an enemy out there, and he has an end game in mind for our children's lives. And our job is to always be looking out to protect their heart and to look out for their best interests. So unless there's any other questions, we've gone over quite a bit, and I do apologize. So we're going to go ahead and end now. And so if you have any questions, I'm going to hang around until all of you are gone. There's several resources. Could you grab a couple of those on the table there for me? There's a couple of resources I forgot to bring up. One is there's an iPad back in the back, and it has a parent email list that we do every month or so. And so if you want to sign up for that list, we send out emails to parents to let them know what's happening in teen and tween and childhood culture. I'm never going to, if you want to follow me on social media, there's all my connection information. You'll never find out from me what I had for lunch or what I'm doing today or anything like that, because I only talk about parenting stuff on social media, all right? So I don't get into politics or anything like that. So if you want to follow me, you can connect with me there. If you want to sign up for our parent email list, you can do that in the back from that iPad. We do have several resources. One is the Tech Savvy Parenting book, and it is the longest chapter in the book is 8 pages because I wrote it with dads in mind because men don't read books. And so also just we're such a busy culture, it's just hard, honestly, so read a whole chapter. Also, because I wrote it with men in mind, look at this, every page has pictures on it. Like literally a third of the whole book is just pictures, because I know you're visually stimulated, right? So there it is. So you could go on tonight and read a whole chapter in a book and be like a reading rock star, okay? Anyway, it's there. It covers, all the stuff we talked about today, along with about 90% or more stuff that we just couldn't get into, all right? So it's available back there. It's 18. Or this book, tomorrow I'll be teaching out of this book here in the Sunday morning service. To me, this is a temporary issue. I know it's the hot topic that you're all struggling with as parents, but to me, this is an eternity issue. And this is all about 5 principles of how you can leave a spiritual legacy in your child's life. Starting at the age of 4, how you can begin to spiritually partner with Christ to introduce your children to who Christ is and how he can change their life. So going from 4 to 14 to 24, you can consistently have a spiritual relationship with your child that you don't have to go through that awkward phase of like angsty teen phase. We never went through that with my kids. Not because we're perfect parents, but because we just decided when our kids were in single digits, we're going to intentionally, spiritually, and relationally engage our kids. So by the time they got to be teenagers, they trusted us. And they were willing to let us walk through all the crazy teenage years with us. And that didn't mean that they didn't pull back at times. But by and large, my daughter, before I left home, I'm walking out the door. I promise the last thing my daughter said to me before I left home is, hey, Dad, I just want to remind you before you go talk to the parents, you're the best dad I've ever met. Now, she's not being facetious. She loves saying it because, you know what, I've earned the right for her to say it because I've invested and invested and invested so much time and energy in her to get that payback, all right? So that's really what this book is all about. It's $15, or you can buy them both together for $30 and save a few dollars. There's also a lot of free resources on the table back there that your pastor has seen. He picked them up last summer when he heard this presentation at Super Summer. And we make those available for free, covering all kind of issues about your family, because other people financially support our ministry. And as they do, we can create resources and give them away for free. So we've now given away over 22,000 of those free resources back there. And people just continue to keep blessing us financially. And every time they do, we just make more resources and give them away. And so today, you get to be blessed because someone else has blessed us. All right? So thank you guys so much for coming today. I really do apologize for going over. And I don't consider it lightly that you gave up an hour and a half of your Saturday to be here. And I know that speaks highly of you, that in your commitment to your child, that you'd be willing to do that. So God bless you guys. Thank you so much for coming. And be sure to pick up the free stuff back in the back. You don't have to buy books, but if you buy a book, then my kids get to eat this week. So you can do with that whatever you want to do with that, right? And we can take cash, check, credit cards, O positive blood,